Bluegrass faithful, we are back. It is episode 23. We've got a fearsome 5-way F-word force that's going to come your way here. Before we get into it, I'm going to hit our sponsors real quick. Kinder Performance Group, John Kinder, Huffman Designs, Alex Huffman, a.k.a. Huffy, a.k.a. the fastest mouth in the South, Scott Fritz Designs. He also has a Facebook page. I think it's SF Designs. So I'll look and I'll hit it again at the end of the podcast. Butt Kicker. All of our non-playoff drivers are racing for butt kickers right now. I've got one bolted to my rig. They're absolutely fantastic. Adds a whole additional dimension to your sim racing experience. So if you're on the outside looking in, racing for the one, race your ass off to get it. If you don't have one and you're in the playoffs, I highly recommend it. And I think we have a sponsor link in the Discord that'll help the league out as well. My favorite sponsor of all time, Red Rocket Buildings and Barbecue. They make buildings and they make barbecues. You can't buy barbecue from them, unfortunately. Elevated Outdoors, as always, let's get high outside. Last but not least, WJM, they're sponsoring drivers. They got a Folds of Honor program for veterans right now. They've got a couple ARCA guys that are in their team over there, whatever you want to call it. They've got so many drivers and girl. They've got so many drivers, I can't even keep up with it. But let's get to introductions. First, we've got up to my left is Alex Penn, our resident photographer, multiple team owner, Xfinity driver. He doesn't look anything like I thought he would, but he's a handsome son of a gun anyways. Maybe a little bit like TJ Majors. Good call on that. Speaking of, the HMFIC is to my right. Jason Collins, as always, joining me. We've got John Schwartz, down to my bottom and left, cup driver of the number 95. Below me, this big burly bearded, got his work muffs on, got the beers rattling, got the cigs in the shirt pocket. He's ready to go. My favorite name to say in the league, Radburn Schutters. Last but not least, since we've got two Alexes, I'm one of them, but you can call me the Scarecrow because I'm outstanding in my field. Let's get it. All right, guys, for this episode, we've got to cover not 1, but 2 weeks worth of races. So we're going to jump right into it with the trucks from Talladega 2 weeks ago. I'll let Jason take the reins and we'll follow his lead.
So first time winner Brian Terry gets it done in the trucks at Talladega. This man
unnamed back marker.
Unnamed back marker pulls out 188. Wasn't it 188? 188 total starts in Bluegrass. Yeah, I was trying to remember if that's what it was, but I think it was 188 total starts in Bluegrass, and he pulls out the win. I know we touched base on this a little bit last week, but we didn't do Xfinity or Cup, so we're doing it all back together. So Terry was a P1, Twitty was P2, Hubbard was P3, Osborne P4, Worthington P5, Duranco P6, Michael Cole with a P7, Bobby Hall Jr. with a P8, Sean Kaiser with a P9, and George Gibbs with a P10. So congrats to all those guys in the truck series for what they did last week at Talladega. Moving on over to the Xfinity series, we have our resident Xfinity driver Radburn Schutters of the number 3 car. Looks like Scott Fritz pulled off the win there. Can you tell us a little bit about that race, Radburn, and how you felt about it going in?
On that note, we're going to spark one up before we start talking about that.
I know it was a tough night, and you had a rough go with I think Ayrton, wasn't it?
We had a tough go with Ayrton, but leading to that, up to the first, it was we were on the backstretch, leading ourselves to the checkered for the stage, and up prior to that, we'd had an awesome run. I'd had an awesome run as far
3
as
wide all night.
Yeah, just like I wanted it to be too. And I can't remember where I qualified now, but
you started P2.
Okay, that makes sense as to why I fell back so quick. I'm never too aggressive at the plate tracks, but it went so well early on. You know, we were just racing, swapping lines. Everybody was doing really well. On the higher side, it seemed like the low line was just so jumpy. You know, it got jumbled up so quick, but nobody could keep a straight wheel on the low line, and it was very, very scary the whole time. And I remember I ended up falling back quite a bit and just wanting to watch the mayhem happen. And you know, I remember what I said in my post race interview the week before that. I said I was going to send it in there where the car shouldn't be,
Right.
and that's what we ended up doing. And I just happened to have a lot of teammates up there, and we
Cornerstone's got a lot of guys.
Yeah,
I think
Cornerstone's
we've got 8
we
going right now. It's
there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood out there. We got a lot of boys out there.
Yeah.
And so with a few moves made, between me and Hackney, I remember Hackney ended up.
Y'all were coming hard on the
line,
outside. Y'all were pushing hard. Like I remember you were pushing Hackney, and y'all were going to the front on that outside line, coming to the stage, and that's when the mayhem kind of occurred between Ayrson and Ott. Ott kind of went low and came back up, and Ayrson kind of didn't hit him square. He kind of caught him on the corner, and that's what shot Ott up into Hackney, caused the mayhem that ended up taking both of you guys out. I know Alex Penn, you were in that race as well. You want to weigh in on it a little bit because you're another Xfinity driver and surprisingly doing a really good job this season. I got to give you my hats off. Like I told you the other night, you kind of scared me when you first came in. You didn't seem to have a handle on the car too much, but I've watched you grow as a driver, and I want to say that we can attribute that to this league and the quality of driving that we have in this league, making you a better Xfinity driver.
Yeah, this league has definitely helped me improve a ton, just going up against the tough guys and learning from them. But for Talladega, I remember I qualified somewhat towards the front, I think, and I just dropped down on the back straight
P9
lap 1 or 2, and just rode around at the back for a very long time. I think I might have gotten caught up in an incident at one point, and after that, the pressure was definitely on to see if I was going to make it out of the round or not. But I think it was Justin Ray and I kept talking about it. We were trying to do the math ourselves and figure out which one of us was going to make it in. But we ended up both making it onto round 2, which was nice.
Yeah, I think coming up to that round, you all, let's see, you advanced by 6 points over your teammate, Tyler Evans. Obviously Jason Ayrson, Jim Ott, Tony Iverson were all eliminated along with Tyler Evans last week in the Xfinity. Schwartz, do you have anything to weigh in on Xfinity? Were you able to catch that race at Talladega last week by any chance?
I didn't watch too much of it. I did watch the end of the truck race, and it looked like something that there was a common trend between all 3 races, which was the outside seemed to be a really strong lane to take, especially like after one lap. I mean, I remember the Cup Series, you ran like the second or third lane, and it was like it almost got single file super quickly. And so I don't know how much side by side there was in the other series, but it was just like the inside line. It seemed like a lot of people started checking up on corner entry, and so it was just like the fact that you could keep the throttle pinned, keep that bump draft to be continuous, that just seemed to be a trend across all the series. So yeah, it was a big surprise in that aspect.
This is a tidbit I'd throw in. This is something I've learned from my Cup teammates. I think specifically Matt and Dave pointed this out at not this plate race, but the last plate track we were at. Something we've started doing, and this isn't a secret I mind sharing because it doesn't make us faster necessarily. But when you're running the bottom line, it's easier to, obviously, if you have a teammate and you can communicate with, but entering turns at a super speedway, what we like to do is to be at least a half lane up so that the guy behind you can see the yellow line so that he can anticipate when he's supposed to turn. Because if you can't see it, you're just looking basically through the back glass of the car in front of you. You're reacting to when they turn. So they turn and you end up, a half lane above them, and you've got to drive it back down. And that's fine when you're single file, but when you're coming to a stage, you're coming to the end of the race and you're side by side and guys are getting tight, that can be the difference between, a win or a top 5 or a respectable finish and
Yep.
wiping out the field. So something that, if you guys are listening, not saying that we have the ultimate strategy, but it's something that's worked for us to help us keep it tighter around the track, especially on entries.
You really have to anticipate where you're at on those super speedways. You can't just follow the car in front of you. You have to know where you're at, and that's where the practice comes in, and turning and following people. Like guys that just go out and run at the front or by themselves, they're not learning like where the turn ins are. You've got to learn how to turn in, and you see it especially in money races. Guys that don't do a lot of super speedway racing, they'll come out there and they'll be following somebody, and you can tell they're just following the guy in front of them. That's all they're doing. They're just watching the guy in front of them, and that guy turns in and they'll go up, and then whoop, caught it, swing back down. You really have to anticipate when to turn in those races. So I'll cover the top 10 for last week in Xfinity at Dega, which was James Silver's. Is that correct? No, that's not right. Scott Fritz won that race. Scott Fritz won that. This is standing. Sorry. Let me go back to it. That's my fault. I apologize. Scott Fritz was the winner last week. He started 16th and ended up pulling the win. Alexander Carr was P2. Really good run from Carr last week at Talladega. Travis Twitty pulls off another podium. Back-to-back podiums for him last week. Kyle Mays was 4th. Ended up barely squeaking into the next round with that 4th place finish. So he fought all night long. I know he had some trouble, got caught up in some incidents and fought all night long. Blake Kinsley, he ended up pulling out the P5. Tyler Evans was P6. Todd Mays was P7. James Silvers was P8. Bobby Mays was P9. Justin Winters P10. So those guys, and honorable mention, Michael Robinson was P11. So that's your boy, I know. So I want to give him honorable mention.
I want to say something before we jump. Before anybody jumps subject too. First stage wreck there on the backstretch. I know I hollered at him, but Mo Abbott. If I would have had triples, man, if I'd have had side sight, if I could have seen left or right, man, I hate that I dove it down. I missed the wreck for the most part. I was contacted. Missed the wreck for the most part, but dude, I smashed him and probably ruined every bit of his race, avoiding that wreck. And I forget who it was. Maybe him and Lancaster had both avoided it completely, except for some idiot in the 3 car. That being
happens.
Me,
it happens.
I dove low, avoided everything. I thought I was clear, man, and I know I apologized to him, but I wanted to say that. That's just more fuel for saving some money up, getting some more screens to look through. So we can maybe not wreck our buddies out there, wreck some
absolutely.
Boys. And that first wreck had a lot to do with what happened the rest of the race too. But that was a good race. That was a really good one. Ended up happening there in the Xfinity series.
Yeah, and it goes a long way apologizing for stuff like that. I'm sure Mo appreciates it. And I'm sure Adam Lancaster he'll appreciate that as well. Because a lot of guys, they don't apologize for anything, and people notice that. People realize that they see this, and that kind of, I guess, is what we'll touch base on that in a little bit. But there's times where guys just don't. All you gotta do is key up and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, my fault," and it smooths things over a lot faster. If you just key up and say, "Hey, my bad," I'm sorry.
Goes a long way.
I would reckon I'm not the only one. I'm sure everybody. If someone does me dirty and I never hear from them, I'm not gonna wreck them. But if I'm in the position to make their life difficult, whether I'm racing for position, whether I'm laps down, whatever the case, if you have done me wrong in the past, I will find some sort of retribution. Yeah. And those are the little things that can turn a P4 for the season into a championship if you right those wrongs along the way. That's the kind of stuff that can really make a difference outside of pure speed and teamwork and strategy. Not making enemies all season is not a bad idea.
Oh, 100%.
I learned that my first season.
100%. You don't want to make enemies
These
because.
yellow-
Go ahead.
The schedule's done turned yellow. Now we're into the playoffs. Now's when you figure
Yep.
out whenever you've done people bad, done people dirty, or you've done people good,
Yep. And
worst
especially
case,
if it's a dude
find out at
that's
Phoenix.
yeah, and it's especially if it's a dude that's not in the playoffs because they don't have anything to lose. If I'm out of the playoffs and I've got a teammate that's in, and you're racing with me,
Yeah.
I will be Ross Chastain. I will be Ryan Newman. I'll be Denny Hamlin. Whatever is your worst enemy in that situation, I'm helping my team out, and I don't care what happens to you.
Yep.
So shifting gears, let's get on over and talk about the Cup Series last week at Talladega. Jonathan Atkins was the winner last week. He pulled off a stellar last 100 feet pass on Justin Winters. I thought Justin had the race. Justin looked like he was the guy to beat there at the end. He had his cousin teammate Alex Huffman behind him. Scott Fritz made a really big push there at the end and try to get to the top side, try to get that line going, trying to get the back-to-back. What?
Wait, Winters is Huffy's cousin?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? I had no idea.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn something
cousins.
new every day.
They're cousins. So
now I know. Now I remember. Now I know why Justin left me out to dry with Huffy below me. Outside of them being teammates.
But yeah, they're cousins. So Alex was, playing blocker for Justin. Jonathan stayed attached all the way until it was a 2-car race. He pushed him to the last couple 100 yards, and it was just a drag race from there. Justin tried to block a little bit, made a little contact. No harm, no foul is what I would have done. It was a good move. But Jonathan just had the run, and Jonathan beat him by like 0.022. So hell of a finish last week. Our resident Cup driver John Schwartz, you want to talk about that race a little bit, and then we'll cover top 10 and everything. Give us your insight for that race.
Hey,
and Alex, I'm sorry,
I'm a Cup driver too.
Yeah, you don't count.
Yeah, I can confirm I'm not the resident Cup driver. I'll take just a Cup driver since Alex is definitely quite competitive in a lot of these races. But
I am one of the Cup drivers of all time. Not the best, but I'm one of them.
But I felt I was running probably top 5 for a good amount of that race, at least in the first stage. But it's so hard to tell when people are going to start ditching you and people are going to start going for their own. And I felt like there was a green flag pit stop, I think, right after the stage, like in the middle of like the end of the first stage to the end. And something that I don't know if it was caught on the broadcast, but it was crazy how like everyone pitted all in the same lap in that front pack. And I think it was like 4 wide going into the pits, and I think Robertson tried to go to the outside of me and then ended up getting in the grass. So that was really unfortunate for him.
It was Mo too. Mo did it.
So it's just like for these restrictor plate tracks, it's almost like the racing isn't as scary as the pit entry. That's when things really get chaotic. So that was something that was a big surprise to me, because you want to kind of split up those groups, that way you don't have those issues. But the thing is, if everyone ends up going and you're the one guy that stays out, then it's just a huge mistake. And so no one wants to risk that either. And so they end up just going by themselves. So that's just a hard thing to communicate between everyone, because as soon as they got on the radio, you don't want to be that one guy. So
Heath ended up going in by himself. Hackney pitted. He was the lone car that pitted, and ended up,
he was early, I think, wasn't he?
He was a couple laps early, and he pitted by himself. Nobody went with him, and it kind of ended up messing up his race. I know Alex Huffman led most of that race. He led 29 laps. And then Schwartz, you led 17. You were second most laps led. So, I mean, I felt like it was a solid race. We only had 4 cautions. So the majority of them came there at the end, towards the end of the race. I know we had the green, white checkered twice, 2 overtimes. I don't remember what caused the initial caution though. Do you? Either of you remember, Schwartz or Healy?
Not the initial. No, I don't.
See, what good are you as a Cup driver? You don't remember.
Well, here's the thing I'll put in about this race, and it's the power of teamwork at super speedways. I found myself on the last restart, I think, or it was a green-white checker finish, I believe.
It was double overtime, yeah.
Yeah. I was P3 at the last green flag, and I finished the race 14th because I pushed winners up to the front and not having spatial awareness of who was around me and their relationships. I got him out front and he jumped down in front of Huffy. And then the guys behind me, they jumped up to the top, and I mean, I might as well have just turned the car off at that point. So
you were the meat in the sandwich at that point.
Yeah, it was just the most, like, I got to right where you want to be at the end. You want to be in the top 3 or 4 rows, and we'll see where it shakes out. And my God, by turn 3 on that first lap, I might as well just drove the damn thing into the pits. So there's that.
It happens.
I mean, whenever I think about these super speedway restarts, I mean, I just think back to Daytona a few weeks ago, and it's like, if you want to see what not to do, watch the final lap of the first stage. I think I was starting inside row, like front row. The leader chose the outside lane, and after starting in what was basically first, ended up finishing 9th in a 1-lap shootout. So it was just brutal to be starting in the front row. You needed 1 lap, and it couldn't do it. So yeah, it's just, you really got to find what lane has the momentum there.
It's all about finding that mo.
That seems to be the devil at those tracks, man. You'll be, say you start on the front row inside, and you'll be all right until you lose your help.
Yeah.
Say you're starting on the top side. Up, well, there goes 2 cars behind me. Up, we're in 6th. Up, all right, never mind. Drop back in line. We're back in 12th now. Let's pull something. Oops.
Well, you'll have that on those super speedway jobs.
Yes, you will.
And on that, let's wash our hands of super speedways.
Well, we got to
head over to the Monster Mile. Oh, we got it. All right,
yep,
we'll get the top 10
real quick. Sorry, yeah. So we got to do Adkins was winner. Was the winner. P1. Winners was P2. Huffman was P3. Fritz was P4. Frankie Barroso coming in P5. Brandon Holder P6. Jimmy Vaughn P7. Daytona Dave Farmer with the P8. John Schwartz P9. Sean Kostritza P10. So congratulations to all those guys last week at Talladega in the Cup Series. And like Alex said, moving on over to the Monster Mile, we got to cover the Truck Series first. This was a wild race.
It was. This was for me. I'll speak from my perspective before we get into the overview. This is one of those races where I was fast and unlucky. Early on, we kind of single filed out, and we were just trying to make it to the stage because everyone knows that if there's a wreck at Dover, and everyone's close, like it's going to be a bad day for a lot of guys. And if you go to pit road, for 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 minutes, whatever, your race is over, which is what ended up happening to me. On the back straight, a couple guys got together. I can't even remember who it was, and I saw it coming. I got slowed down, went down to the bottom, and instead of just coming to a dead stop because I was scared to death, someone just run over me. I kind of tried to creep through there, and unfortunately, my teammate Alan Duranco was right behind me, and he was kind of doing the same thing, but he was on the high side. He ended up having to dive down, and he really didn't hit me that hard, but it pushed me into the wall, and my front left net coated into the inside wall and destroyed my suspension and ruined the night. I think I finished 18th, which we'll get to later, but I could have finished 23rd. I could have just alt F forward, but I didn't. And it was a boring, terrible time. I finished 15 laps down, but I picked up 5 spots. Right now I'm 1 spot outside of the playoffs after that. If I'd finished 23rd, I would probably have to have a win next week. I still might, maybe, depending on how things go, but those 5 positions, as boring as they were to drive around for an hour and get, that could be the difference potentially between $0 and $500 or whatever the Truck Series gets.
Yeah.
Which again, we'll get to that later. I'm not trying to beat anyone down, at least not just yet.
Well, Bobby Hall ended up leading most of that race to begin with. He took off and had a good run up until the stage, and we had an incident right there, right as the stage was coming out. Or actually, I'm sorry, it was green flag pit stops were coming out. They were doing stops, and Bobby and Colbert had just pitted. Caution comes out. Put Bobby's restarting second, I believe, on that restart, and Colbert got around him, and I believe won the stage. And then restarting after the stage, Colbert led 55 laps. Looked like the truck to beat. He was gone. He was just absolutely untouchable once he had clean air. I know he ended up having a pit stop issue where didn't take tires. Black box issue. Got iRacinged. And Sean Kaiser ended up pulling out the dub. So that's back-to-back round openers for Kaiser. He got Darlington in round 1, and then turns around and gets Dover in round 2 to put himself into the next round. So
it's gotta feel so good to win that first one.
Yeah,
in the round of the play, because and he admitted as much that he's not a great road course racer with the Roval coming. So for him, I mean, how much better could it be?
Lock yourself in.
He can shoot for stage points if that's in the cards, and even if he has an absolutely abysmal run, he's in a better spot than I am.
Yeah, I mean, you're what, 6 or 8 points out right now from Peacock?
Yeah, 6 or 8. I can't remember.
8 points behind Peacock, who's the number 8 guy right now. Peacock's the cutoff guy. Going into the Roval next week. You know, Colbert, he's setting pretty up. P1 at 25.97. Peyton Hubbard 25.74. Kaiser 25.66. Barrett Morton tied with Wes Wigand for 4th at 25.59. And then you have Lucas Lyons at 25.58. Bobby Hall at 25.54, and then Peacock is 25.50. Then you get you and Worthington are both 25.42. Osborne 25.39, and Duranco. No, Osborne's the end of it. No,
yep.
Yeah, Duranco is the Duranco's there. Yeah, Duranco's 25.32. Yeah, sorry. So Duranco's got a lot of ground to make up. A lot of ground. That's 18 points to make up between him and Peacock. Yours isn't as bad. You can do some stage points and hope that Peacock doesn't get stage points next week.
Here's what I'm telling you, and Peacock is a good racer.
Not so much at a road course.
I'm gonna blow his doors off at this road course. You heard it here first.
Okay.
Here we go.
I like the shit talk.
I'm just gonna. We haven't talked a lot, obviously, but we had our issue in my first season in the league. He ain't gonna touch me at the Roval. It just ain't gonna happen.
You're a good road course driver. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you obviously have the real life experience with the Corvette at the track in Bowling Green, and you have a ARCA truck or something.
Yeah, I'm setting up an ARCA truck to go road race, and I just enjoy road racing. It's different. I'm not as good at it as I am at ovals, but in a league of oval guys, anyone that has road course experience, even if you're not great, like it's automatic top 10s almost.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I already know who's going to win Xfinity Roval. This man right here he's on my screen. He's to your left. I guess. Yes. So, Alex Penn, he's going to be the guy to beat next week. I don't want to hear nothing from you, Radburn. You ran like a 125 or something. So we don't even want to hear from you right now. No, I'm just teasing, bud.
No, I was going to talk good on Healy, but now I won't say nothing now.
I didn't say anything bad. That's Jason's fault. I like it. People rarely compliment me.
I was gonna bring up old news with Coda when I drove down into the trucks, and me and Healy, he started. I think he started like a position or two behind me.
I had to start in the back.
Yep,
and then he got
started in the
damaged
back,
early too. He ran in the back of somebody on the first corner.
Yep, he got hurt because he was too fast and ran right into somebody. But no kidding though.
Got a good finish.
Still, with me trying to figure the trucks out at Coda, which Coda is one of the tracks that I spend a lot of time there. I really prepared to win that race every season, and I hate that I didn't get to this season.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted it because there was some guy named Smith that just happened to be an alien last season that robbed it from me.
Me too.
And,
me too.
Yeah, Healy too. So he tried to sweep us.
Yeah,
he couldn't pull it off. But not to take anything away from him, dude's an alien. But
Aaron Smith.
no, me and Healy, we raced for a while there at Coda earlier in the season, and dude had speed. Whenever I passed him later in the race, I hated to see him go like that because I was trying to chase him, and but no, Healy. I got Healy on the road courses. We'll get that later. Get that later. But,
I'm just glad there's somebody else that likes Coda.
Yeah.
So Alex Huffman, if you're listening, we got two right here. Me and Schutters, we like Coda. Suck it, even though it's not on the schedule next season.
It'll be back. Don't worry, we'll put it back. It'll be back. It just had to take a break. So, Alex Penn, let's hear from you about this Dover race, man. What was your experience? How did you feel? Oh, I'm sorry, we're talking about the truck still. You were there though. You were spotting, were you not, for the trucks?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. So go ahead and let us hear from your point of view as a spotter. What did you think about the trucks at Dover?
It looked like a lot of fun. With the way they seemed to be handling around that track, it just looked like a blast to be racing. It was a little upsetting that we've now gone from seemingly 2 trucks to 1 on Cornerstone, but I think we're out of the points anyway, so I don't think it will really make much of a difference.
Right.
But looked like like I said, it looked like a pretty fun race to be a part of.
So it's before the race, which me and Duranko, which unfortunately ended up getting together, not either of our faults necessarily, but for me personally, Dover is probably one of the 3 or 4 most fun ovals that there is. I love driving it. I hate getting wrecked at it, and it feels like it happens a lot just because I just call it Big Bristol because everything happens so fast and it's big banking. It's high speeds all the time. You can't take a lap off. I don't even have time to like look at my black box, look at my relatives. If you take your eyes off the track, you're screwed, which is awesome, but also really exhausting at the same time.
Agreed. I do want to give a shout out to Brian Terry. He fought up his win last week at Dago with a P6 and the trucks at Dover this week. He was the last guy on the lead lap in the trucks because we had so many incidents there. Well, actually, we didn't have that many cautions. We only had 3 total cautions, one of them being the stage. But it just, there was so much separation between the top 6 guys, and then you had Brackett, who was a lap down there, finished 7th. Kaiser pulled out the win, like we said. Colbert was P2, Barrett Morton was P3, Lucas Lyons gets P4. So with JC Motorsports 1, 2, 3, 4, that's incredible. Those guys have brought their A game this season and to the Truck Series. JC Motorsports, I'm glad that they were able to come over and race with us. I'm glad we have them. Hopefully they'll stick around for many seasons to come. Hopefully they're enjoying the league and the experience. So you had Wes Wiggin was P5. Wes had a freaking amazing season. The dude finished P2 in overall points this season, something like that, or P3. I don't know, somewhere like that. He's had a really good season. Wes has been kicking ass, and you can see
super consistent.
You can see his progression. I would honestly like to see Wes win the championship. I mean, just because he's been here, he's an OG, been with me from the beginning. We've butted heads a couple times, but it's because we're so much alike. We're so similar. I like the guy a lot. He's a good driver.
He's a good shit, man.
Yeah.
My first season was Flex, and it started with me and Dan talking some, and obviously with Bobby and Wes and Alan have been just awesome. Me and Wes had a altercation at the end of last season. I did the thing that I advise people to do. I went and I did something bad to him at Martinsville, and I went there and just said, "Hey, man, go ahead, cuss me out." And he's like, "Well, hell, I don't even feel like it now." But as far as Wes goes, he's just ultra consistent. Maybe not the best guy at any single track, but he has top 5 potential everywhere he goes. Whether it's a super speedway, road course, dirt, whatever.
Yep.
He can be in the mix, and if you're in the mix long enough, the wins will come. Maybe they do or don't this season. He might even not need one this season. So if that's a championship pick, I know that's not what you said, but that is that would
I would
be
like
a strong
to see
one.
him. I would like to see him.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that he's going to get it done, but I would like to see him get one because he's been here with me for as long as he has, and you know he deserves one at this point. I feel like he's held in there. All those guys, Worthington, Bobby, Wes, Allen, yourself. I mean, all you guys are phenomenal people to have. You know, Ron Morris, Ed Osborne, Brian Terry. Trying to think of who else. Cody Verrill, Travis Twitty, like you guys that have been here season after season after season.
Man,
Sean Kostritza. You know,
I just want to listen to the Twitty post race interview after his first win.
It's coming.
Whenever Twitty,
it's coming.
I'm dying for the Twitty post race.
I want to get Twitty back on here as well on the podcast.
Dying for it. He's been so close, man.
It'll be tremendous.
Yeah, I can't wait. I want to see it happen.
I'm dying for it. I'm dying for the Twitty post race.
But just to follow up what I was going with, top 10, I stopped at Wes. Brian Terry was P6, David Brackett was P7, Taylor Peacock was P8, Dan Worthington was P9, and Tyler Evans round out your top 10 for the trucks at Dover. Moving on over to the Xfinity Series, we've still got a lot to cover, and we're not even close to being done yet. So we've got a lot this one, guys. It's going to be a long episode. So this guy that it seems like he ain't done shit all season comes up and pulls off the win for Xfinity at Dover. Some dude named Radburn Schutters.
I think I picked him. Did I pick him?
No, we didn't do a pick last week. We didn't do picks. We skipped last week. That's why we're doing back-to-back weeks.
Okay. Well, I picked him in my heart of hearts then.
We did.
Nobody needs.
Yeah, we picked Talladega when we did our last one. We picked Talladega.
Right.
We didn't pick for this race, but you know, you try to steal that one. I get you. It's okay. I would have picked Radburn too because I had him picked. That was my guy.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're going to take it, I'm going to take it too, bitch.
You can't take it. I already took it. It's already been taken. You're out.
So Radburn, how does it feel, man? You got that monkey off your back. You got your first win. And, you know, obviously we're going to hear from Alex and John as well, but I want to hear from the man himself. This is your first win of the season. You struggled all season long, P2 after P2 after P2. How does it feel to finally get that monkey off your back? We've talked about it on here many times, and we've picked you to win, and you come so close. So how does it feel?
Honestly, you want me to really disappoint you? I was more excited over the stage win.
Really?
Because me and whoever it was racing there, I knew I was on older tires. I think it was a 55. I don't remember who it was.
55. Yeah, it was 55.
They had fresher tires than I did, and I was stretching it hard for that stage win because I knew I needed the points, and I knew it was going to be tight whenever I pulled in close.
Yep.
And man, the very last set of corners, I got side by side with them in the apex of 3 and 4.
Yeah,
and
that was a hell of a race.
I guess I just pressured them up into the wall because I never got close to them. But dude, I got way hype after knowing that he'd gotten the wall and I'd cleared him. I was hype. You can ask Alex Penn. I was in the chat I was like, let's go! Like I just won. I was over the moon after that stage win, making it that close. And
Kyle Mays was the guy, like I said, he was the 55. He was the guy that got out there. And the broadcast, Alex Robinson, of all people on the broadcast, was going, well, this is Kyle Mays is going to win this stage. This is his stage.
Yeah,
all the while, here comes Radburn, and he's like getting inside of him. And Alex just like, well, I guess it's Radburn wins now. I'm like, how are you not going to get more hyped about the stage, bro? Like, come on, bro, you got to hype it up, man. Alex, shame on you.
I was like, dude, my BPM was like at unsafe level at that point. Like once I got inside of them, I was like, we're gonna get this. We got to get this. At least make it a photo finish to the stage. Like that's what I was wanting.
We had a good race overall. We had 6 total cautions in the Xfinity. Most of them came towards the end. We had pretty solid race up until the stage. Alex Penn, you were in that race. What do you remember?
It was another fun race. I was doing pretty well. I was saving my tires weirdly well because I'm not usually good at that. So that was nice to see. I was really bringing it in, especially towards the end of the stage. I was starting to gain a bunch of ground. Was lined up for a pretty good finish, and then I think on the last wreck I had just barely gotten tagged, and it completely destroyed my right front suspension. Gave me a beep ball, so I had to bring it down pit road and wasn't able to finish the race, sadly.
That's unfortunate. Schwartz, did you catch any of the Dover Xfinity race?
Yeah, I tuned in at just the best time when I'm not sure was it Kostritza that got pushed into the wall at a turn 2 or something and then collected the field or something? That was a highlight that I saw. So
let me discuss that. That I was going to bring that up, and I'm glad you did. So what happened was Kostritza got loose in 1. Got loose. You could tell he was it was his race to lose. He had fresher tires than Radburn. It was 100% his race to lose. He got loose going into 1, and that allowed Radburn to get under him. He came down and pinched Radburn really, really hard coming off the corner. I mean, he was right down on that bottom lane, and so when they come off the corner, there's really nothing else to say about it. He was just pinching so much that when Radburn's car started coming up off the corner, he was down in Radburn's lane. It was ultimately a racing deal. I can't put fault on Radburn for what happened because he maintained his line. He did not come up until it was time to come off the corner, and he was still in the lane that you would take to come off the corner while Kostritza was just right down top of him. So yeah, he ended up getting into the outside wall and collecting everybody behind him. And that was kind of all she wrote at that point. We knew Radburn was locked in to win.
I got sidetracked in my interview because that's the first thing that I did, man. I was so worried that I'd done something wrong to him, and I mean, in the middle of my interview, I'm like, yeah, I'm scrolling back to look at this fucking wreck. Number 1.
I'm usually the first one.
No, I got it. Let's go, baby. No, I scrolled back to look at the wreck in the middle of my interview because I was so worried about it. I looked at it from my cockpit, from his cockpit. I looked at it from first person, third person. I looked at it from the blimp.
Yeah.
I was so worried that I had done something that, I like I said, man, my incident count, I know I've gotten what wrecks I have got in have ended my race. That's kept my incident count low. But also,
you had a 0x. So even after that incident, you had a 0x. That's how.
So that proves my point. I told him that it didn't feel like we'd done nothing hardly. Like I hit him, I guess I rolled up into him,
but he was pinching so hard that there was nowhere for you to go. That's the point. Like
he tire to tire, and
his tire hopped to me. He tire hopped like whenever you were coming off the corner and he was still there, and he just like he was still turning down. Like you could see in the. Like he just wasn't given any room, and you have to give the guy on the bottom room. Turn
2 at Dover is a bear anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And I made sure that I got the call right. I called somebody else in to look at it. Because Cody and I were already kind of on the saying it's a racing deal. It's not Radburn's fault at this point but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't wrong. So I called John Kinder up and I said, "Hey, look at this with me." And he said, "Man, Radburn didn't do anything wrong. He doesn't move. He holds his line the entire time. The 46 was pinching the whole time after he got loose. He was trying to save what he could. He's like, you can't drive guys like that. That's, you got to show respect to these guys and give room. And he just wasn't giving any room. So nothing against Kostritza. I love Sean Kostritza. He's a great guy. I just don't believe that it was your fault. I wish that it hadn't ended like that. I
hate it. I hated that it ended like that, man. Because he was the guy to beat at the time, man.
100%. He had the best tires.
I did. And that's not how I wanted to get my first win. Because, I won a few races last season. And I think all but one of them was pretty much undisputed whenever I crossed the line. And I felt like this one, dude, that's not how I wanted to. I didn't want to jump the restart on the final line and end up 30 car lengths ahead of the last guy because of everybody wrecking behind me, dude. Like, there's no pride to be having that.
No.
But I will say the first win was sweet. I've been dying. I've been absolutely dying to check that off the list, get the monkey off my back. I hate that it had to go that way. I would have much rather us just been fighting to the line or him just pull away because pressure tires are pressure tires.
Yeah. But I'll be honest with you, though. The guy to beat. Go ahead. Sorry.
On that note, we're going to go with more Dirty Dancing because we made it to the next round, baby. Let's go with a little bit more Dirty Dancing.
I love it. That's hilarious. If you're not tuning in, he just showed was the album? Was that the Dirty Dancing album?
That's
yeah, dude. This is
the vinyl.
This is the more Dirty Dancing. This ain't even just Dirty Dancing. This is the more Dirty Dancing.
Oh shoot, that's the more. So yes, for you guys that are listening, he's showing the cover right now. So that's awesome. That's way to go, Radburn.
That's what we need, baby.
That was a good one. That was perfect. I will say
I had that in my back pocket for.
I like it. I will say though that the guy that I felt the guy to beat was Tony Iverson. Tony Iverson had something figured out. He's on the cusp of getting his first win in Bluegrass history too. He's not had a win yet, and he's on the cusp right now of getting that win, his very first win. He had a good run at Talladega. All right. And he had a pit stop mishap where he got a black flag for speeding after Quiddy was pushing him to the lead for ever and ever and ever at Talladega last week in Xfinity. And I'm telling you, the dude is on the cusp of winning his first race. Now, Hackney was the guy to beat prior to Tony at seemed like he had the speed, the short run speed. He led 74 laps, but ultimately ended up getting past because it was such a long green flag run. Tony got the lead and, led several laps, and he ended up making another mistake. Something happened with him in 55. He didn't have the fuel strategy quite figured out. He probably should have saved fuel on that last stint early and probably might have been able to save and stretch it like Brandon Robertson did last night, but he wasn't able to do it, and he had to come in and pit. So when he came in and pit, he got tires and fuel, took back off trying to get his lap back, ended up getting into the back of the 55. I know he said during his interview that he felt like there was a lane there, and there wasn't. There was no lane. Like you could, I don't know how he felt like there was a lane there. Kyle was all the way on the bottom, and Tony just drove right into him. Well, that's what brought out one of the first cautions towards the end of the race. Unfortunately, and that puts Tony to the back. So Tony ended up finishing P2, but he finished P2 due to the other cautions that happened. He was able to get back up towards the front, but yeah, he drove right into the back of the 55, and I wasn't sure, why he drove right into the back of 55. Like I said, during his interview, he said he thought he had a lane down there, but he clearly didn't. And then, again, Brian Terry pulling out a P3. he's on a hot streak right now. You know, I've got to say congratulations to Brian. Win at Talladega, P6 in trucks at Dover, turns around and pulls out a P3 at Dover in Xfinity. You know,
he's vibing. He's vibing.
The dude is hot right now. He's vibing.
Right now.
He loves it. And
broke the ice, man.
yeah, I mean he's loving it. So Adam Lancaster pulled out the P4, Justin Ray P5, Greg Carr P6, Kyle Mays P7, Todd Mays P8. Todd was looking good the other night too. I think Todd had the fuel strategy. He was surprisingly fast. Matt Grenier was P9, Alexander Carr P10. So and honorable mention, Alex Penn was P11. So congrats to all those guys.
Yeah.
And
I will give Tony Iverson credit. There was no catching him. Absolutely no catching him before he run into that incident. I was following him all I could before that incident, and if it would have stayed green, there's no doubt in my mind that was his race to lose. And you know, it should. And Sean had he had everything going for him there at the end. And Tony, I spent most of my race behind Hackney and Iverson. I feel like really that's what I felt like, at least. And Hackney I think he burnt his tires off a little early.
He did.
Leading the race is hard to gauge how hard to go.
Yeah,
that's one of the hardest things to learn is how to.
That's something I had to learn. Yep.
I still hate to lead a race because I don't know how hard to go. I go off of everybody in my mirror, and even then, you can still be too hot on entry or too hot on exit, and you
just got to really pace yourself. You gotta set a pace, and you gotta say, okay, this is what I'm going to run. You know, if I get out to let's say a second lead, that's when you stop pushing the car as hard as you've been pushing it, and you kind of let those tires cool back down. And, you know, when they get under a second, you know, maybe you pick the pace back up a little bit. You really, it's something I had to learn myself as well, because I'd get out and I'd burn my shit up in the trucks. But once I got, you know, to Xfinity and everything, like I just paced, man. Something like I said, you got to learn. Everybody's got to learn how to do it. You got to learn how to lead.
It's tough. I think Hackney had the car to beat early on for sure.
For a minute, yeah.
He had the pace to beat.
Short run pace for sure.
Iverson, once he got ahead of me, I know there was no chance of me winning.
Yeah.
If it would have stayed green, dude, that was Tony had it going on, man.
Healy, what were you going to say?
Just as far as saving tires, it's something that I'm still learning, but Dover is maybe the hardest track to do that at, because it's so fast paced. And if you really commit yourself to saving tires, you're going to start bleeding positions, which is something for me that's really hard to do, is let guys just go and assume that I'm going to come back to them later. There are guys that are obviously really good at it, but speaking to what Radburn was saying, he's trying to save tires there, and if you're still learning it, like Dover is a place where sometimes I just commit to, I'm just gonna burn this son of a bitch down, and we'll go get new tires and we'll go do it again, because it's so hard to save there, which we'll get into to Cup here in a second. But I know even inside of my Cup team, I am the least experienced of those guys, and at the end of that first stage, all of our front right tire wear, I mean, it was the lowest numbers I've ever heard any of those guys ever say in any race we've ever been in.
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4 people blew a tire before the stage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want to cover the points in Xfinity real quick. I just want to talk about this for a second. The points in Xfinity are so freaking tight. It's ridiculous. Like, I mean, it is truly ridiculous how tight these points are. So James Silver's 25.78, Radburn Schutters 25.77, Adam Lancaster 25.68, Keith Hackney 25.67. Then you go Kyle Mays 25.62, Todd Mays 25.48, and then so from Todd Mays all the way back to Scott Fritz, 7 points separates the top 6 drivers. So 25.48 for Mays, Kostritza, 25-47. Alex Penn, 25-47. Justin Ray, 25-46. Michael Robinson, 25-46. Blake Kinsley, 25-44. Scott Fritz, 25-41. That is insane. That's some
wild.
tight. It doesn't make sense not to race smart with the points being that tight. Why?
Yeah.
I just have to say this. I have to chastise some of these guys for a second. I got to get on their asses and just chew it just a minute. All right, then I'll switch it up. But you guys,
Jason wants to chew some guys' butts. That's what I heard.
Yes, I'm chewing some ass
That's
right now.
shit, man. That's spooky dookie.
They have no reason to race so freaking hard that they're taking each other out early in a race because the points are so tight. You should be racing smart the entire time because points are so tight. You don't want to give. Why would you want to give up points? And give up a good finish. You don't. So race smart because those points are so tight right now, guys. You want to make sure that you do that. You don't want to race over your heads or race aggressive. It's anybody's ball game next week at the Roval. The points are so tight. Literally 7 freaking points from 6th place to 12th place. The cutoff guy, Alex Penn, he's our last cutoff with 25-47.
So glad we're going to a road course.
Talking about you, Alex. Talking about you.
6 points from Fritz to Alex. So those guys better race smart next week. That's all I got to tell them. Better race smart.
Now, speaking of next week, before we get to Dover, talking about the Cup Series and switching over from Radburn's win and Brian's podium and his nice streak, and talking about all the drama in the Cup Series, I just want to talk about Alex's background here. He has a pretty sweet background. And speaking of Dover, if I see that correctly, I think you have like a helicopter view of is that Watkins Glen behind you, and then is that Dover below it?
Is Homestead below it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, since I love those huge shots, so I just wanted to commend
they're
nice
awesome.
backgrounds.
Thank you.
All right, so that's going to give us a segue for just a moment, and we'll be right back with Cup at Dover.
All right, coming back to you guys. Last race we have to cover before we go completely off the rails, but we are Cup Series at Dover. I was a part of it. Schwartz 95 down there was a big part of it. I know me and him got the race together at least for a little while. I can't remember what happened to him in particular, but I'm sure he will give you more details than I will. Overall, it was a fairly clean race. We did have
3 cautions.
Three cautions, one of them being the stage, but the cautions did lead to some post-race and after the fact drama. We'll get to that when the time is right. But as far as the race went, it was as the flags tell you, it was a super clean race. We had a lot of varying strategies. One of them being my teammate in particular, which was super impressive. None of us knew that was coming. I'm talking about Brandon Robertson in the 3. But outside of that, just super fun racing with these guys. I know that typically when I talk about the Cup Series, I right now as a driver, I'm not as competitive in Cup as I am trucks. Still learning the car and learning these drivers how to race with these guys, that stuff like that.
P4 last night says you're pretty competitive, in my opinion. But
for me personally, outside of the wins I've had in the Truck Series, this was the proudest I've ever been after a race. The cards didn't fall exactly how I wanted them to as far as pit strategy, but I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Basically, from the start to the end, I split every stage in half, give or take a couple laps, and just tried to do it on pace and hoping guys would make mistakes. And there was a little bit of both. I was by no means the fastest guy out there. But there were also, I think, some guys that were trying to get a little too creative on pit strategy, hoping yellows would save them at points in time and stuff like that. But ultimately, I got to run door to door with tons of talented guys. I mean, I raced with Adkins for a while. I raced with GT for a while. I raced with Scott Fritz and Alex Huffman a lot. And I I made it hard on Fritz. He was probably frustrated with me a couple times. I was backing him up on entries a little bit. That's kind of been one of my little secrets since my truck win at Watkins Glen. I played that card on Peyton quite a bit there. Kostritza, I ran with him a ton. It felt like I was next to him constantly. I felt like I just got like the full menu of Cup drivers, and I got a little taste of how each guy likes to drive at a really rhythm based track, and whether a guy was a lap down or 10 laps down, lead lap ahead of me at the time or whatever, everybody's racing hard at all times, because when a caution comes out there, it can be a multiple lap swing depending on where you are in the field. And like I said earlier in the trucks, in the truck race, I was fast and I felt like I was unlucky. I was hoping in this race I would be slow and lucky. Luckily, I had, I thought
pretty good
competitive pace, and it was enough. And fortunately, I didn't make any mistakes. I was conservative with the strategy. I was conservative getting onto and off of pit road. And there were, especially in that first stage, when we had well, not everybody, but most of us ran 80 laps on one set of tires. And buddy, was that a challenge. Just a lot of it was keeping the fronts and rears balanced between drive off and entering hot. I felt that at least by my standards, I did a pretty okay job of that, because typically I'm one of the guys that will kind of rise in the front half and fall back in the second half. And it was kind of flip-flopped at Dover, because it is a place that's very hard to save tires, and maybe my slightly slower pace helped out with that. But ultimately, one of the most fun races I've had in Bluegrass. Even if I didn't have a great finish, I got to race with a lot of really talented guys that ran me very clean the whole time. It's a track where you have to constantly be on top of your game, and everybody that I came across outside of one guy was on it all night.
And Schwartz, what was your intake or input on that race? How do you feel about it, man?
Yeah, just going off of well, excited to say, I mean, he was saying you got to figure out you got to experience the menu of all the drivers. I feel like going off of that, we should have a new sponsor for this race, because everyone was getting meatballs, so we should just get meatball subs. We should call it the Subway Race or something. That'll be a good sponsor for it next season or something. They'll definitely that'll be a nice transition. But yeah, unfortunately, I was one of the few that couldn't make it those 80 laps. I had to pit for meatball lap 72, so just a few laps short there. So I was unfortunate, went a few laps down. But yeah, I started. Yeah, starting 11th, I had a pretty bad qualifying, and in the first 10 laps, I think I moved up to 7th or 6th. And in any other race, I'd be like, man, what a great start. I'm so disappointed that I gained that many spots, because I was just pushing so hard and it killed my tires through those 80 laps. So if I was just a little smoother, didn't go through the field that quickly, I feel like that would have helped me for the long run. But yeah, first of all, I just have to give a shout out to Brandon, not just for the fuel, but for his tire and fuel strategy, because I was so split on whether to take tires or not, because it was just not only where the tires, there was a lot of fall off, but you only had a few sets. And so I was really trying to figure out how to get that balance. If we didn't have that caution, like right after the stage, that would have really flipped things over for everyone, I think. So yeah, great job for Brandon for the stage. But there was also one incident. I think it was right with Hackney as he caught Alex, and it was literally the lap that I pitted. I had 0.9 laps of fuel, and I was like, I could go around one more time, but I didn't want to risk it. And if I stayed around, it would have stayed in the lead lap. So, man, just getting really unfortunate with the pit stops. But obviously, you can never predict these cautions. But overall, just the racing, I felt like so many lanes started to work, especially when the tires started to fall off, really being able to run up higher. I felt like the lower that I went, it was like I ended up sliding the rears a lot on exit because I was exiting too low on both sides, just not wanting to get into the wall. And so it's one of those tracks where it's like the more that you risk getting close to the wall on exit, I feel like that almost saved your tires. So it was this really weird thing. It was like you had to be risky to have a more stable car. So yeah, definitely a really technical track just in terms of managing those tires in some way. But yeah, I don't know how he recovered, really don't. But yeah, I think somehow got a top 10 in the end. So
You were talking about this a little bit last night. You were talking
he's
about the
hot.
strategy. You're talking about the strategy where I kind of like, obviously I put everybody in a box. I make you choose between the stage or taking tires and winning the stage or keeping an extra set so you can potentially win the race. Talk about that a little bit and how, like kind of what you were telling me last night about it, how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I normally enjoy like a good balance of tires just that way people have the choice to be more aggressive in the stage. So, I mean, Brandon, for example, he split the stage by taking tires in the middle and then had fresher tires and was able to basically have a lot more pace to be able to go for the stage. However, by that time, if he took tires at the stage, he only would have had one set left for the race. And so it's like if you're not having any more cautions, you're going to struggle through that long run. And so I'm one thing that I was considering was like I recognize how important tires are, but let's say he pits at lap 50 and then there's a caution lap 60. And so it's like in that case, then everyone else is probably going to take those tires and they're going to beat him for the stage win. And so it's not even just about thinking how big of an advantage are tires, but what's the opportunity to take those tires if something changes. And so I felt like we had so little wiggle room for those what if scenarios in terms of taking tires, and so that really put us in the box, which wasn't a bad thing per se, but it was just something that I felt like a lot of times you have to deal with green flag running and people on fresh tires going through the field with old tires. Here it was like there was never the time that a guy with fresh tires is going to be going through the field. It was always, oh, it's going to be a guy with old tires versus even older tires. And so that was just a different style of racing. But I need to look back at the replay how the heck Brandon tried to stretch that fuel out, because I think I took 7 gallons at the end and was like 10 laps to the good, and yet he somehow stretched it out and
almost
was
60 laps. Almost
Yeah.
60 laps. It was insane.
Incredible. I don't know if he's clutching it. Even if he was clutching it, that's still impressive.
He was clutching 100%. I went and checked and go ahead.
Brandon's a devil whenever it comes to stretching some fuel runs or playing some very strategic.
You know all about it from last season.
Oh, absolutely. I know all about it.
Yep. He won the championship last season, Xfinity.
Yeah, and congratulations to him. I don't think I ever got to say that to him. But, yeah, Brandon will play some wild stuff on you. I don't know. It just seemed like every race he had a plan. He had a different plan.
He always has a plan. Always.
And it all more often than not, he was going to beat you on the field no matter what.
Yeah.
Tires, he might be 50-50 with you, but he's fast enough to make up for that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And he can do the long run stuff or the short run speed. He's got both.
Yep.
And
absolutely. He showed it. He showed it big time at Phoenix last season.
Yeah.
And which I didn't get to race, but I watched.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And he but he done his thing, dude. He done his thing. That's his game. He does it so well. It's like this dude's freaking Einstein.
He's hella smart. He's very smart.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about the call that he made. I might be screwing up the person who messed it up for him, who he's basing his pace off of. I'm pretty sure it was Adkins. I could be wrong, but basically he was trying to stay like a decent gap ahead of him. And when Adkins, either when he got close or when he got by him, Brandon said that he pushed for a few laps. If he had not done that, I think he would have pulled it off.
Yeah,
because I think that was just enough off of his window to keep him from finishing. If he hadn't done that, I really think he would have pulled it off.
Well-
and like you guys, it was just as much of a surprise to me because he had that in his back pocket. He's my teammate in Cup Series, and at Dover, it's not a big team track necessarily. So if you have your own strategy, by all means, and that's like you said, Radburn. That's his MO. Is he figures out the fuel strategy, and he'll be there at the end. And I think that if he had not got rushed, he would have pulled off an amazing victory. And I was rooting for him the whole time.
PT started catching him in there at the end.
Yeah, as
That's what pushed him.
It would have been GT though.
I got so nervous that he screwed Chief after I guaranteed him, hey, this guy's gonna run out of fuel. Then lap 198 comes by, then 199 comes by, and he's still not coming down pit road. And the gap is kind of staying the same, so GT is not gaining anything else, and I just got so nervous. Like I could barely even watch the end of that race until I heard Robertson come on the radio and say, "I'm out of fuel."
Out of fuel, yep. And I mean,
Brandon's got he's got a wrinkly brain, dude. The rest of us have
we're smooth brain, baby.
Yeah.
we go fast and we figure out gas later. He's the wrinkles make space for fuel and tires and speed. People like us, we don't have that.
So this was a pretty spicy race. Even during the race, we had a controversy between.
Let's get to the drama.
We had a controversy between Blake Hensley and Sean Kostritza. So early on in the race, Sean passes Blake really clean, like didn't touch him, got around him perfectly fine. Okay, when he gets around him, Blake then gets a run. He worked several laps to get around him, but he finally gets around him. Blake gets a run and gets right up into the back of him, jacks his ass end up off the ground, had Kostritza all out of sorts on the backstretch, had him up in the wall and everything. Gets back around Kostritza, and Kostritza's riding, right? So we're coming to the stage. It's literally time to close the pits. Like I'm about to hit the close pit button, 2 to go on the stage, lap 79. Kostritza's on the front stretch, and his car just comes off the wall and hits Hensley in the right rear, and Hensley just goes spinning up the track and just, total chaos after that. So going back and looking at it, I was like, man, that looks so freaking intentional when I first looked at it. And I was like, but that's not Sean's style. I don't think Sean would do that. So I went in and I looked, and I was looking at the wheel, and the wheel was going like this, like left, right, center, right, center, right, center, right. He was fighting that car the whole time. So I went and looked, I was seeing he had a meatball. So I was like, put 2 and 2 together. I assumed that he had a tire go down because he was so close to the stage. And I know like Fritz was on 1%. Somebody else said they were on 1%. 1%. Fritz sent me a picture at the stage. He was on 1% at the stage.
James was on 1% as well.
I thought I was bad.
Well,
that's crazy.
I was at
50. 1%.
I was at 50.
It was the inside. It was like 1%, and then the others were like kind of higher. The percentages were higher, but it was 1% on that inside. And I'm assuming that's probably what happened to Sean, is he had a tire go down, because the way he was fighting that car, I mean, he was just, right, center, right, trying to keep it from getting down there. And ultimately, Blake, he thought that he did it intentionally and wanted to talk to me. And I told him after the race, we discussed it. And we did discuss it. And I told him, I said, man, I don't believe that was intentional. I'm sorry. I said, I looked at it and I said he had a meatball at the time. So that leads me to believe that he had a tire go down because of the long 80 lap stint to the stage. So, ultimately Blake took that and he's like, yeah, I didn't know about the meatball. And I was like, yeah. So, I understand why you thought it was what it was. And I looked at it and I just made sure that it was the right call. But, the other thing that we have going on, obviously, Keith had an incident where he got up behind Huffman. All right. And when he got right behind Huffman, at first I thought Huffman hit the brakes and made him get into him, but he didn't. He that's not what happened. He got up behind Huffman. It took the air off the nose, which made the car lose front downforce and put all the wheel spin into the back. And you could just see the car come around, and Keith had it saved. And, he got it straightened back out, and then when he got it straightened back out, he went to gas back up or something, I guess. The rears hadn't gripped again, and at that point, it started pushing up to the right. Well, here comes James Silver's flying in there and just KOs the right side of Keith, which starts spinning him around, and then Mills comes flying in, and it's like, you guys, all right, this is going to be a little bit controversial. I know they're probably going to get mad, and that's fine. I don't care. You guys have got to learn to drive beyond the nose of your car. You saw this guy wrecking for over 2 corners back. You're back in coming out of the whole freaking front stretch. You see the guy wrecking. He's out of control. Why are you not slowing down ahead of time? First of all, you should have been slowing down because, and it's a self-cleaning track, so he's going to come back down. Okay, after he gets done spinning, he's going to come back down, and you try to dive. Like, you had a whole upper part of the track, you could have went around to the outside. If you'd have slowed down, you could have got turned and went to the right and got around. But it's just like, why? Like, just use your head, drive beyond the nose of your car. Like, and I'm not saying trying to take anything away from Keith, because he is responsible for what he, for getting loose. I mean, it was his doing. But at the same time, you've got to drive beyond the nose of your car. You've got to see what's going on in front of you. I know Mills went into post-race fights during the race and said some things to Keith and said, "Fuck you" to Keith and all this.
That's 2. That's 2.
The thing is, while, I understand you should have waited. You should have waited until after the race to say, you shouldn't have went. You were mad. You're pissed off. You hadn't watched the replay. You've admitted you haven't watched the replay. You don't know what was going on. What you did was
best case, man. No matter what it is, usually, dude, and
it's a racing deal either way.
I like to wait. I like to try and wait until the next day to even ever attempt to talk to somebody that might have been involved with something that I had a hold of.
Yeah, and that's best case scenario. Wait,
dude, because first reaction, I'm wanting to fucking kill somebody. That's number 2.
3. That's 3.
Man, you got 2 in before I got 1 in. This is fucking bullshit.
I'll never be back again.
So here's something. Another thing I wanted to talk about. A lot of these guys, so they've been giving Keith a lot of crap about alt F4ing, right? Because when he gets into an accident, he'll alt F4 and leave the race. Well, ultimately, that has hurt him a little bit, because some of the, and I'm not trying to take anything away from these guys, because they're doing what they got to do to make it to the next round. But these guys that do get wrecked out early, they'll sit there and they'll turn lap after lap after lap to try to gain 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4, whatever they got to gain. They've done it all season long. It's not necessarily that they're the fastest guys, not even that they're top 10 fast. They're maybe top 15 fast. But what they're doing is they're pointing their way in, because they're not quitting. They're not giving up. But he's not that type of guy. He's out there to win. He doesn't want to run around and get points. And I can totally respect that. That's his decision. This is kind of what I was going back to the whole Mikey Neal situation. I told Mikey, man, you got to stop quitting and just get points, because that's the reason that you got beat out of the first round, is because you quit and you didn't continue to gain points. And had you continued to gain points and not quit and rage quit and alt F4, you'd have been probably in this round.
Can I just add something? I just feel like a few races before the playoffs, I had Mikey in my top 4 in the finals. Like, he had that pace.
Me too.
It's really a big surprise.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when if you give up and you don't, and you got guys in there, you got guys in there that are going to stick it out, even if they're 50 laps down and gain every single point that they can gain.
Man, you can't give up.
That's racing. I mean, that is the difference. Like, some of these guys, they don't have the pace to win the race. They don't even, like I said, they don't even have top 10 pace, but they're finishing where they're finishing and getting points because they don't quit. They just stick it out. And like I said, that's my gripe to Mikey, is if he had stuck it out. And even right now, like, not racing this week, it's silly, because he can still race for up to 5th place points. Like, that's $50 you're pissing away a shot at. Why not just do it? I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to get those points if you continue to run like you have all season. Yeah, you had a couple bad races in the first round, But even like at the Darlington round, if he doesn't alt F4 and goes so many laps down and he just gets his damage fixed and stays out there, he probably makes it into this round if he does that, And same thing with
and then it's
Talladega.
all reset after that. So
yeah, and then the points reset. So it's like
I was just venting to you, Jason, the other day. We were talking, and I was just venting to you. I was like, dude, I'm out of motivation.
Yeah.
I'm out of motivation. Sure, I'll force myself to practice what little bit that I can, and that's like once I get into the race, we're good. I know what to do. Blah blah blah. Halfway through the race at Dover, especially, I was just like, well, I'm just gonna absolutely do what I can to keep up with Iverson, and I was still playing the chase game, but my mind's out of it. I'm just playing chase at that point. But even before then, I told you I was like, I'm out of it, and whether it be from work, just being tired, being a dad, blah 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 blah, doesn't really matter. Dude, you got to keep your head in it, and that's what's been killing me here lately. Not to mention the other guys like Keith. Your head doesn't matter what's happening between the ears. You have to keep your head in it.
Absolutely.
I know that's a lot to what to do with him. It's had a lot to do with what's been going on with me. I just happened to back into this win at Dover, so let's go. But I totally backed into it.
I wouldn't say that. I think you earned it on pace and strategy.
Yeah, you had a good run.
You won the stage.
Yeah, you won the stage.
To build
off
me, go ahead, Brad.
To me, I think I backed into it. If it didn't come between me and Kostritza, totally, I absolutely 1,000% backed into it.
Well, I mean, you can say that at the same time, but you did have the pace and everything, and you won the stage. But Healy, what were you going to say?
Just building off of what Radburn was saying, as far as like motivation to get into these races. So this is my first season in the Cup Series, and if I hadn't missed a race, if a couple things would have bounced better, I might have squeaked into the round of 16 and went from there. I didn't make it. I'm not in the playoffs, and that's a new feeling for me. I've made the playoff trucks every year, and I'm still competing this season. Everything. Going into Dover, I look at it. It's 200 laps. I'm like, God, this track is exhausting. It's going to take a lot out of me. What do I have to gain out of this? I can't really help my teammates. But once I got into practice, and this is probably not the same for everybody. Once I get in there, I just like racing next to guys and just trying to whether it's a pass for 17th place or a pass for a first. For me, it's just fun to race guys, and I think that at times some guys lose focus of the basic, like what is fun about racing, and they get caught up in points and championships and money, which granted is all important and makes it worth it and cool and all that stuff. I think you have to be able to move your target a little bit and adjust and be able to find joy in whatever situation you're in. As a non-playoff guy, I'm just trying to get better. Like, this is my first season in Cup. I'm trying to learn from these guys, and I'm trying to build the confidence to race against them like I would race against guys in the Truck Series. Because there have been times this season in Cup where Keith will get to me, or Farmer gets to me, or whoever, Mikey, Neal in particular, and I kind of want to get out of their way because I know that I'm not where they are just yet. But now that we're getting to the end of the season, I've got more practice under my belt. I've got more time on the track with these guys.
Your head's right. Your
Yeah,
head's right.
you're just trying to get better and just figure out how to race these guys and build off of that. Now, I'm not going to make any money this season. I'm just not. But it's fun for me. I'm getting better, and the other stuff outside of that is I'm hanging out with buddies. I'm making new friends. I'm hanging out with the other Alex, then I'm hanging out with Radburn, hanging out with Schwartz, making these connections. That's the other aspect of this league, and just leagues in general, that I think goes a little underappreciated at times. It's a community. It's a brotherhood. It's we all have this passion.
Absolutely.
And we fight and bicker about shit. And Keith is the first guy that comes to mind when you think of that stuff. But I know a lot of guys give Keith a lot of shit and maybe don't like him for whatever.
It comes with the territory, though.
But they haven't talked to him. They haven't, like, we've done podcasts with him.
Yes.
I've hung out with him outside of that in Discord and stuff. He's not a bad dude.
No,
I
not at
get
all.
it. I get it. He's confident to the point of arrogance at sometimes, but that makes it fun.
Yes.
That makes it fun to kick his ass.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I almost done it. I almost said the happy. Absolutely.
So here's the thing: is Keith likes to talk shit. He likes to talk shit, and he's got to be able to. When he makes a mistake, he's got to be able to accept that people are going to talk shit back. So that's the thing that I feel like right now is he's letting something get under his skin that shouldn't even bother him. Honestly, like, yeah, well, so what? Dude calls you out and says "F you." Well, so what? Who cares, dude? You're fast enough. You're a competitor, and you're running for 2 championships. You're literally a contender for both championships in Xfinity and Cup. Why would you throw all that away over something somebody says? Like, who gives a shit, man? Like, it's not that big a deal. Let the dude be mad for 24 hours. He's going to get over it. You're going to get over it, and then move on. So, I see a lot of these guys saying, "Oh, well, he can dish it, but he can't take it." And, in a sense, it's kind of the truth right now. Like, I'm not trying to shit on the guy, but it's the truth. It seems like he can dish it out all day long, but as soon as somebody says something back to him, he can't take it. Just like, let's go to the meme. We did a meme last week about Mikey. Mikey didn't say one bad word, about it for you posting the meme about him. Didn't care, whatever. Okay. But you posted a meme about that Alex made about Keith, and it's like, he's like, come on, man, or whatever. He said something, apparently, but who cares? Like, it's all in good fun, dude. Like, it's all for fun.
You got to be able to laugh at yourself.
I wish I was cool enough to have fucking memes. That's number 4.
You should be made. You should be happy.
Memes made about me, Alex is over here like,
man. I've been wanting to make one that was just like Radburn shitters, but I'm sure you've heard that a million times in your life.
You'd be taking one right out of Nate Maver's book. But no, that's what I'm like, dude. That would be so cool. Be that guy.
I can't wait to make a meme about you tomorrow. Now,
so we got to cover.
Good. No, I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
If you will, it's the same situation is, and I'd never compare Keith to Earnhardt or any, obviously any of our legends in NASCAR, but he's getting treated as an Earnhardt almost.
Or Kyle Busch.
Busch,
yeah.
all of our greats, and Busch fits the bill perfectly too.
Yeah.
More, I wasn't going to say Busch, but
But I mean, this seems like that's what it is. You know,
he's so good. He's always good no matter where he goes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you're always going to have your haters.
Yep.
But the dude's always there. He's always there at the end. He qualifies well. He races hard is what it is. He doesn't necessarily
he races to win. He races to win. He doesn't race for anything but the win. He wants to win.
He's not going to run you over if it isn't under. I'm not going to run you over if I can't help it. He's not going to run you over if he can't help it.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw myself in that same boat because I have rights to do that. I have the lowest incident count of anybody in the Xfinity League. I'm not going to run myself into your ass. He's so good that he literally cannot do that. If you look at his stats, like you have to give him some room. Not literally room, but the dude's a very good driver. He's fast. He can obviously maneuver himself around traffic.
He can get it done, no doubt. I mean, but that's not what I'm saying is like he has got to have the tough, thick skin, especially if you're going to come in and talk shit and try to back it up. So if you make a mistake, who cares? It's one mistake. Get over it and and let's move on and get back to racing and knock this thing out of the park because he's a contender, bro. There's a reason he's a contender. It's like you said, he's a clean driver. He makes mistakes, but everybody makes mistakes though. That's the thing. We all make mistakes. So at the end of the day, he just needs to, get over it, I guess, and get back to it.
It's the outside of racing stuff that
I get it. He don't like the drama, but he created the drama. Yep. You can't create the drama, and then when you decide you don't like it, just be like, oh, I'm done with it all. Like that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. That's you got to toughen up. I mean, I thought me and him were really good friends outside of the racing because like I've got to know Keith a lot in Discord. Like we've hung out many nights. Like the dude is very talented. I will tell you that. All right. I will say this. I'm tired of people saying go back to dirt. Okay. He's proved now for 2 seasons. He's proved for 2 seasons now that he can drive asphalt. Stop saying go back to dirt. The dude is not, he's not limited to dirt. He comes over here because he wants to be part of this community and stuff. And I understand that people get aggravated with him and pissed off, whatever. But at the end of the day, he's still a person, still a human, just like anybody else. He has emotions. I get it. Maybe he lets his emotions get the best of him a little bit. But at the end of the day, we got to move past this, get your ass back into the Discord, and let's race it out and finish the season.
I think it's pitiful that, honestly, I'll go full blast. I think it's pitiful that people will tell him to go back to dirt when he happens to race with us every week. Not only one series, but 2. He races on Tuesdays and Wednesdays with us.
He would have ran all 3 if I'd have let him.
Yeah, maintains his 30 to 50th in the world on dirt.
Yeah,
he's in the top 50 on dirt.
Yeah. No doubt he's a talented dirt driver, and he's a talent. He's just talented driver all around. That's what matters.
Dude is so good, but he has time enough to come here and race with us on asphalt side, which isn't his cup of tea. But if you can drive, you can drive. That's just it.
Absolutely.
That's period. I used to do the dirt stuff. I had a lot of fun. I was pretty good. If I'd hadn't quit, I'd have probably been really good by now. Not Keith Hackney good, but he comes here and he puts his time in, he practices, and God forbid he makes a mistake, but he also needs to, I think Keith needs to have a little bit tougher skin because
exactly
he is good enough to where he doesn't
need to listen to the bullshit. So but
brush it off.
We need to shift gears here. We've been on this topic for too long. We need to shift gears. So let me wrap up the top 10. GT Hawkins pulls out the win. David Farmer pulls out P2. David Farmer had a really good race. I thought Dave was potentially going to win that race last night because he looked really good, especially on the long run. Jonathan Atkins was P3. Alex Healy, P4. Congratulations, John Schwartz. Congrats on you for your P5. Brandon Robertson ends up pulling P6 after leading the most laps, led 79 laps there. Scott Fritz, P7, Alex Huffman, P8, Sean Kostritza, P9, John Kinder, P10. So, Cup Series, you all did a fantastic job. Last night, Wednesday night, it was a great race. I loved watching the race and everything. I want to get us on, moving on a little bit. Like I said, we've covered everything from all the racing, all the drama, and all that. So we've got call-ins that we need to listen to. So give me a second. Let me get that fired up, and we'll get into some call-ins. All right, guys. So we got a little extra thing for everyone. You can call into the broadcast. There's a link available in the Discord. I'll share that out again. But there is a feature where you can call Anchor or Spotify for podcasters, as it's called now. You can call in and leave a message. So we've got a couple messages we want to play here real quick. I want to let everybody listen to it, and then we'll give feedback on it. So let's start now.
I'm just calling in, just really trying to understand the logic here of why Alex Huffman is still trying to attempt to win races. After so many seasons, I don't really think he has many, and I feel for him. But other than that, where do you plan to go on with this, like moving forward with this series? We got to weed out the rotten apples, and clearly there is like one that's making the whole tree rot. So, what are we going to do about this moving forward?
All right, so that was Keith Hackney calling in, doing a little
irony is awful.
little shit talking about Alex Huffman. So I gotta say that's a pretty funny message. That's prior to last night. That was last week. We didn't get to put that in because it was after we'd already recorded. But the irony of that message is it's pretty funny, man. At the end of the day, it's all in good fun. This is. I'm not trying to pick on Keith. I'm not trying to pick on Huffman. I just, the rivalry between those two guys, it's two of my best drivers. We've got a good group. When I say two of my best drivers, there's so many good freaking drivers. It's ridiculous. I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody, but they are two of the top level drivers. They're top 5, top 10 guys in their respective series. Just like Shorts, you're a top 5 guy pretty much every week, I feel like. Radburn, you're a top 5 guy every week, I feel like. Healy, you're a top 5 guy every week. Alex Penn's going to win the road course next week. So, I know you guys have your top in your own different in your own different series. So, not trying to take anything away, but these are two of my top Cup drivers, and they're having a feud, and it adds to all this. It makes it worth it. It makes everybody want to know what's going on. It makes everybody want to tune in. And it's awesome, man. At the end of the day, it really, truly is awesome to have a rivalry. And these guys were friends just a little while ago, like a couple weeks ago. And that's what makes it even more freaking awesome is like that they're fighting like little brothers, basically, like two brothers. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just wanted to be the first to comment on this just by giving my thoughts, because I just like what you're talking about, the fact that it brings in the drama and it gives people a reason to watch. But I feel it should motivate both Huffman and Hackney just to continue running, because when you get pissed by someone, you should want to beat them for that next week. That should motivate you to do better. That should motivate you to fight. And so I feel like that's exactly what he shouldn't think, oh, I have to go leave Discord because I got wrecked and I'm pissed about that, I'm not going to come back. He should feel the exact opposite.
Exactly.
That's exactly right, dude.
Alex Penn, Alex Healy, weigh in.
Every time that I've had a perceived slight with someone, whether real or something that I've made up, I'll build off of what John said. All I want to do the next week, I don't care about anybody else in the field except for that guy. Earlier this season for me, I felt I got a protest that was from a driver that was not involved in the incident that they protested, and I knew who it was.
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, I wanted to beat that driver every single week, and
as most people do.
I think I've mostly done that because I'm in the playoffs. He isn't. and I know it works differently for different people, but man, if someone challenges me like that, the only person I care about beating is you. So at the finale of this whole thing, I hope we get some showdowns between Keith and Huffy going forward. Like you said, they're two very talented drivers that they honestly have two very different driving styles. One's very aggressive, one's very conservative and consistent and finds his way to the front towards the end of the race. And I like seeing those contrasting styles clash. It forces guys off of their game. It forces guys to do things that they wouldn't normally do. So I hope after all of this, Keith, I posted the meme about you. I didn't make it, but I did post it because it was good. And, prior to that, I posted one that was in your favor.
Yeah.
So I hope that you come back. I hope that we can have some more drama from the, because I want to see him race Huffy. I want to see it happen. I don't really have a dog in this fight necessarily, but I'm ready to see it. And there's nothing I enjoy better than when I go into the office on a Tuesday and I just randomly open up Discord and then I see there's 350 fucking messages in post-race fights. I love that shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I told him just a little bit ago, I've been trying to talk to him a little bit, and I was like, dude, I want our Phoenix battle.
Yeah.
The Phoenix battle.
That's what I'm saying. Why would you not want to race against the best guys?
That's the big nut. The Phoenix is the big nut. That is what you're going for.
100%.
And I didn't get the chance to race in Phoenix last year. Dude, I'm 199 laps short of experience of everybody else out there.
Yeah.
I did not get to race that race last year, pretty much. And I told him, I was like, dude, if I don't get to fucking battle you 5.
6, technically.
If I don't get to battle at 6, dang it, Alex. If I don't get... This is my numbers guy. Alex is the numbers guy. If I don't get to battle you at Phoenix, if I don't get to battle James at Phoenix, like I've got this all formulated in my head. I'm thinking at the very least I'm battling James and Hackney. And then the third member, whoever it may be, that's in the air. I'll let fate decide that. But that's what I was like, man, you're so good everywhere you go. I'm gonna see you in the final round.
You're probably gonna be racing Lancaster if I had to put money on it. He'll be there at the end.
Dude, Lancaster's always there at the end.
He'll be there. He'll be in the final 4.
You gotta watch Lancaster, man. He's sneaky.
He's been with me for a while, and he's a good driver, man. So you'll be battling with him, I'm sure. Let's hear from Alex Penn real quick on this message. What are your thoughts on it?
I love it because, like I said before, the irony is awesome, but just the feud that those two have had has been so much fun to watch from the sidelines, and I'm going to be really disappointed if it doesn't continue. I know that in this league, I personally don't have any like rivals. At least I hope not. But
you do now. You do now. You got Dan Worthington on your ass now.
I don't race him or anything though. So
he'll race Xfinity next season just to race with you. I guarantee it. Knowing Dan.
All right.
No, and here's the other part. He's my teammate. I love Dan to death. He's awesome, dude.
Awesome, dude.
And Alex, you're a good dude too.
Yep.
But any
you don't know him.
any guy that is under you, Alex, I hate it for him, buddy.
All right, so we've got a few more messages
Alex
to play.
is my boy, Alex. Alex and Alex. How dare you, Alex?
We got a few more messages to play. They're from our buddy Schwartz here, so let's go ahead and take a listen to those, and we'll give our thoughts on those. So,
Hey guys, this is Jonathan Schwartz from the Cup Series, and I had a short question just about track scheduling. So I did some research and looked at the amount of cautions that we've had over the last three. You chose the wrong one.
do what? All right.
Yeah, look
That
at
one
the ones
cut
that-
off. All right, that one cut
Hey
off.
guys, this is Jonathan Schwartz from the Cup Series, and I had a question about the number of cautions at different tracks. So I had done some research and found that at Nashville Fairgrounds, the Truck Series had 15 cautions, Xfinity Series 16, and the Cup Series 20. Similarly, at North Wilkesboro, there were 12, 15, and 13 cautions respectively. However, at other intermediate tracks like Nashville Super Speedway, the Truck Series had 3, Xfinity Series 3, and Cup Series 4. So instead of double-digit cautions, there was only 3 or 4 cautions, a lot less. So based on that, it sounds like short tracks are often a lot more wreck-filled. There's not as much green flag racing, and I feel like that kind of hinders just the quality of the broadcasts. So I guess one, what exactly is causing all these cautions? Sure, the track is smaller, but is it closer racing resulting in more contact? And second of all, if that is the case, should we remove shorter tracks from the schedule, or what should we do about those increased number of cautions? Are we okay with it? Just wanted to hear your thoughts.
So that's
More
a very
short
good.
tracks.
That's a very good
More
question.
short tracks.
The
More
answer
short
is
tracks.
that we have adjusted the schedule to compensate. I don't know if you've seen that, John, but we have adjusted the schedule to compensate. There aren't as many short tracks on the schedule as this season. One thing I do think was one of the reasons why it was car count. Our car count has been elevated. We've had 30 to 30 plus cars all the way up until the playoffs. And, when you have those numbers, you're going to have more cautions because the cars are close together. It's shorter track, obviously, and all that. That's one thing. Two is having some of those short tracks so early in the season. I think that also caused an issue. So, like I said, we are trying to rectify the issue with the cautions, but that's a very good question. Obviously you can see we go Auto Club Vegas, Pocono, Kansas, Michigan. Then we have our first short track, which is Bristol Dirt. Then we go Chicago Street, Richmond, which is our second. Iowa, which is technically our third. It's a bigger short track, but it's still a short track. Sonoma, Charlotte. Then we go North Wilkesboro, Nashville Super Speedway, Daytona. Then we go New Hampshire. That's our other one. Talladega, Bristol, back in the playoffs. That's our other one. Charlotte, Roval, Darlington, and then Martinsville is another one, and then Homestead. So definitely less short tracks in the season 7 schedule. Sorry.
Yeah, you've shorted people that are good at short tracks. I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
To one of the initial questions, should we have less short tracks? To make a 1-to-1 comparison versus what we do versus the real life NASCAR schedule. Short tracks for NASCAR typically are the most watched races. And the reasons for that are the close quarters racing that often turns into cautions.
Mm-hmm.
And additionally, the emotions that arise from short track racing. To speak on, does it hurt the broadcast?
I don't think so.
It is hard to watch pacing on iRacing versus NASCAR. I mean, in NASCAR, there's commercials. You get up, you go get a drink, whatever. If you're watching something on iRacing, you're buckled in for the long haul, no matter what. Something that I would suggest, and I know that it's not always possible depending on how people are pitting and stuff like that, but to kind of find a middle ground, whenever it is possible when we're at a short track, to shorten caution laps, which I know sounds awesome just to say it, but there are a lot of times where we've got guys pitting every lap trying to fix damage, stuff like that. But maybe something to discuss in the off season.
The main reason is damage repair. You've got to give guys time to repair damage, so that's why we don't shorten them as right now.
Yep.
I'll tell you what it is.
Makes perfect sense.
People tend to overdrive at the short tracks.
100% overdrive. They drive over their head and
overdrive the car and overdrive way in over their head. Patience is a big thing. That's the reason why we have so many cautions at the short tracks. And the short tracks are beautiful, dude. The racing it creates when everybody is on the same page, almost, there's never that guaranteed. But
the racing is just not comparable to anything else.
When you can get it through your thick skull that you're not going to pass this guy in one lap, the short tracks are great. Really,
yeah, they are.
There's a lot to be had with it, especially with the broadcast too. If they're keeping up with it in the mid-pack races, man, you talk about
some of our best racing this season.
Bumping and grinding, absolutely best races we had this season. And if you can just keep it green, oh, dude,
it's as good as it gets.
Yep.
Nashville is a outlier to them, though. I will say that Nashville is not a happy place. Nashville's not a happy place. Bristol is fun. Bristol is great. You can run high or low. Either way, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Nashville Fairgrounds anyway.
Yeah, let's get from Alex Penn. Let's hear what he has to say on this real quick.
I would love to see more short tracks for a couple of reasons. One is I always feel slow on the cookie cutter tracks.
Yeah.
So that would
Alex
help
is good at the short tracks.
And I wouldn't say I'm good, but I'm good at avoiding wrecks for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So I can usually keep my car somewhat clean and just end up towards the front just by chance. I know at Nashville Fairgrounds I had a pretty clean car and pulled a strategy play, taking only 2 tires, and ended up paying off because I was able to keep my car clean, and I ended up finishing third on my. That's the only time I have picked up a podium on an oval in this league. So.
Well, that's good. Good job, John. You want to weigh in anything real quick to your own question?
Okay. Yeah, I also agree just in terms of the fact of just pacing can be a bit boring, but I understand the importance of being able to fix damage since it does happen a lot. In terms of, I feel like the last question is like, are we okay with those aspects? Are we okay with the increased cautions? And I agree that, I mean, it definitely gives a different vibe than the mile and a half where there is a lot of green flag racing. And when it is green, it's probably more fun than basically anything else. I definitely agree with that aspect. It's just, I feel like the aggression happens to be there more often than not. And it is unfortunate because with how short the track is, that's really short laps. And so it ends up having more laps than any other track. And so I feel that gives more opportunities for people to be able to make these moves. And it's like you have more laps, and yet you're treating it as if you have like less laps than any other track.
Yeah.
And so it's just
I think there's like a sense of urgency or something. They get like they get this feeling like they've got to get around this person right now or something. I don't know what it is, but a lot of it, they need to respect braking zones. If guys would start respecting other people's braking zones and not trying to just get like, you can't get around somebody diving it under them every single time. Not everybody's going to move up out of your way. So guess what? You're going to cause an accident. Sometimes you got to figure out how to get around somebody on the other side of the corner. And I think a lot of it is they don't know some guys don't know how to do that yet. They haven't figured out how to pass somebody getting off the corner. They don't know how to bump somebody without wrecking them. They don't know where the cars like the nose of the car is just yet, and it just comes down more practice. They need to practice more. But we've got one more message to listen to from Schwartz, so let's kick that off real quick.
Hey guys, this is Jonathan Schwartz from the Cup Series, and I just had a short question about stage winners and race winners and how they vary at super speedways. So I looked at the Truck Series and some of the last 3 races that we've ran at Darlington, Daytona, and National Super Speedway, and I noticed that at Darlington, the stage winner ended up finishing second at the end of the race. At National Super Speedway, the stage winner also won the race. Yet at Daytona, the stage winner ended up finishing 18th. And there was a very similar trend at Xfinity and Cup Series levels as well, where the stage winner ended up finishing like in the top 5 or top 10, and then at the end of the race at Daytona, the stage winner ended up finishing outside the top 10 or even outside the top 15. So I realized that there can be a lot of action going on, but why is it that the stage winner at like these restricted plate tracks end up finishing so far back? Is it that the strategy results in them having to compromise for the end of the race, or is it just that these races get so crazy? But yeah, what makes restricted plate races like Daytona have such that variance compared to other tracks?
I think it's just the fact that the tracks are it's the restrictor plate tracks. Anybody can move to the front. Honestly, I think that's the biggest difference. It's a great equalizer, and you can go to the front whenever you want.
I'd have to agree, just based on my experience at Talladega a couple weeks ago. Not necessarily that I was good at the stage, but at the end of the race, I was in the position that everybody wants to be in, and I thought I was sitting pretty. And all it takes is one wrong move, and you go from 3rd to 14th, like I did within 2. There's such a when people are actually pushing for position at a super speedway, the variance is so high, where at a mile and a half or a short track or a road course, you can decide to push, but you're not going to get 10 spots in a single lap anywhere else except for a super speedway.
Yep.
It's a beautiful disposition is what it is.
Absolutely.
Alex, absolutely think you got it going on the high side. And, there it is. Stage break or whatever it may be. There's always contact. There's always a slow guy in front of you with rear end damage. It's such a toss up, just total toss up.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Alex, Penn, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think Darlington was kind of a good example of this, where where GT had just been fast all day and completely ran away, and I think he won the stage, and then he completely ran away again for the rest of the race and won. But at Darlington, you're not, even if you're in the lead, you're not really in control. You're kind of at the mercy of the drivers behind you, because they're the ones who can decide if they want to stop helping you and make a third line, or if they're going to keep pushing you.
And I don't know. It's like, I think, like I said, the track it's a great equalizer. So at the end of the day, that's what you get. So that wraps it up for our call-in messages. John, you got anything else you want to add before I move us over?
Yeah, I'll just add one last thing, which is that especially at restrictor plate tracks, it's like when you're second in line, you have to find your way to be able to get in front and lead that train. And I feel like being able to maneuver up to the lead, it's like be able to win the stage, you had to have found some way to be able to achieve that. And so it's like even if you fall back down through the field, by the end of the race, you have that ability or that shown ability to be able to fight back through the front. And so it's even if the winner of the stage can't get the win, I would still find like they've shown that they have that ability to fight through the pack. So at least maybe get a good finish, even if you can't win. And that just difference between, okay, maybe they didn't get the win, they got a top 5, but the fact that it seems to be such a trend of finishing outside the top 10, it's like, sure, they might lose the momentum and people can pass you so quickly there, but falling back that far, that was just the big surprise for me. So, but I feel like a lot of the points that you made also did make sense.
All right.
I can also say there's some guys that needs to practice on buffing and grinding, if you will.
All right, so
putting that thing up in there.
I want to move over and cover the butt kicker points real quick because these guys deserve a little recognition as well. Because even though they're not in the playoffs, they're still running for a butt kicker and Alex Healy's money. So Brian Terry is currently leading the points in the truck series after 3 races. Brian Terry sits ahead of Cody Anderson by 13 points. David Brackett is trailing Cody by 2 points. Travis Twitty is the 4th man. So it is a 4-way battle going into Phoenix. If you stay in the top 4, you will have a shot at the butt kicker and the money. So congratulations to those guys right now for being in the money for the truck series and the butt kicker. So moving over to the Xfinity, you've got Matt Grenier, who's leading that ahead of Greg Carr by 1 point. Alexander Carr is in 3rd, and Brian Terry rounds out your 4th position over there. And going into the Cup Series, Scott Fritz currently leads all drivers over there. Dustin Ronstedel falls behind Fritz. Charles Blake is just behind Dustin, and Travis Twitty is rounding out the top 4, just ahead of Frankie Barroso by 1 point going into the next race number 4. That'll take us over to NASCAR, and we will be right back. Whoa. All right, guys. So we are back with some NASCAR topics. We're going to talk about the penalty fallout from Colleague and I guess
Hendrick and Denny.
Yep. So go ahead and lead us with that, Alex. I don't know much about it. You probably know more than I do right now.
Yeah, shooting off the top of my head, I know the initial penalty that was applied to both Hendrick and Colleague. Hendrick, their appeal was successful. They got their points back. They still had to suspend crew chiefs for 4 weeks. I think they had to still pay the combined $400,000. But Colleague, on the other hand, also appealed it. Colleague gets a lot of parts from Hendrick. Colleague, their appeal was not overturned.
Damn.
Which, from where I'm sitting, is very aggravating. For people on the outside looking in, I'm not a big Hendrick fan personally. Not that it really affects my opinion on this, even though it's going to sound like it. It's 2 teams in the same boat, and a team with 4 of the top drivers in the sport. They got their appeal overturned, while Colleague, who sources parts from Hendrick, didn't. And it's easy for people to make a distinction and they'll come up with the tinfoil theories. Well, Hendrick's important for the sport. They've got popular drivers. We're going to let them off the hook. On the other side, with a Colleague, with I think it was specifically Justin Haley's car, maybe not Allmendinger's. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Haley was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
I think it was just Haley.
Yeah,
I think it was just him. I don't think it was Allmendinger, but regardless, they source parts from Hendrick, and they get stuck with the penalty. It starts to feel like a lot of other professional sports where people are constantly pissed off at the sanctioning body for showing favoritism towards teams or groups or players or drivers, whatever you want to term it. People that bring the masses to the sport, which obviously is good for the sport, but looking at it from someone like us who watches the sport every week and maybe roots for drivers that are not the most popular guys in the sport necessarily, it's aggravating to watch a small team get nuked for using parts from the most popular team in the sport, and that team not getting penalized for it. I do know that Colleague is I don't know if it's appealing the appeal, but taking it to the next level at this point. But ultimately, I hope that Colleague at least gets off the hook the way that Hendrick did. I truly think they all should be penalized the same amount of points that Hendrick was initially penalized, but here we are. So we'll see what happens there. The other penalty that I don't have a huge problem with. I know some of my friends do. Denny Hamlin appealed his 25-point penalty for he admitted that he took Ross out. I think that was 3, maybe 4 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah.
Phoenix, I think.
Yeah, it was at Phoenix. And I don't have a big problem with it, but I do have a small problem, and I hope some of you guys will chime in on this. Basically, final laps of the race, Denny's car got super tight, and it was driving up the track, and he had 2 options. Either he could slow way down and get passed by a bunch of guys, or he could continue driving to the wall and take someone with him. And that someone was Ross Chastain, who he had beef with prior and perhaps still does. Sounds like a lot of NASCAR drivers do, unfortunately. But the day of the race, there were no penalties. No one really got out of shape about it until Denny said what he said on his podcast. So basically, what NASCAR is saying is you can wreck guys, but don't
admit it.
Don't say you did it. Don't admit to it. Don't talk about it. If you have a podcast, which Denny has, I don't know, it's probably in the top 3 most popular NASCAR podcasts, I would assume.
Actions detrimental.
Yeah,
Fits perfectly.
It truly does. And if he doesn't have a podcast, he has no penalty. Is basically what it comes down to, and that does bother me a little bit. But then again, admitting to wrecking somebody, there has to be a line somewhere. But at the end of the day, what he's done versus what a ton of guys have done this season is no different. He just happens to have a podcast and he's honest about it. So
yeah. So what about this other topic you got here, Ross, the new Intimidator? Let's talk about that for a minute.
So people that have been listening know that I'm a Kurt Busch fan. He's no longer driving because his eggs got scrambled. Great commentator now. Yeah. But I've been on the search for a new driver, and I'm trying to zero in on one. I've liked Ross from when he was Kurt's teammate a couple of years ago at Chip Ganassi. And there have been times when I've been frustrated with the way that Ross has driven people. I like Denny as well. I like a lot of guys that Ross has gotten into it with, Alex Bowman, AJ Allmendinger, that kind of thing. But this past week, it's gone too far in the other direction. I think it was Christopher Bell on one of the final restarts. Ross drove it aggressively, made it 3 wide, but as soon as Christopher Bell saw Ross Chastain's car, swerved. He was in the middle, moved it way up into the top lane, and created a wreck on his own, basically. And then after the race, blamed it on Ross, saying that, we got this wrecking ball coming through. He's wrecking everybody. And when you watch the replay, Ross is, there's a whole lane in between their vehicles.
Doing his own thing, trying to put it 3 wide to make position. I see it.
Yeah. And at that point in the race, that's what you have to do to make positions. And in our spreadsheet, I said Ross, the new Intimidator. I'm not saying he's Dale Earnhardt or anything like that, but it seems like there are a lot of guys in the Cup Series right now when when Ross is in their rear view or he's side by side with them, they're just scared to death. Like they can't race around him because they're scared that he will do something. And admittedly, in the past, he's done things that were questionable at best. But this season, I haven't seen him do anything extraordinarily outside of what any other driver would do.
Mhm.
And it seems like he's just this easy scapegoat for when someone makes a mistake. They'll say, well, Ross did this to me. Ross did this. Ross did that. And it led to all these funny ass memes on Twitter where like people are like photoshopping Ross into like the assassination of John F. Kennedy or killing Dale Earnhardt or whatever. And all that shit's hilarious to me because I have a horrible sense of humor. But it's I'm almost to the point to where I'm going to be a Ross guy now.
Yeah, I've liked Ross for a minute. I liked him last season. I still like him. So
I think a lot
But
of
yeah,
people
that-
started
I liked
liking
him.
him
I've
after
liked him
Martinsville.
for a little bit now. Since I had decided that he was going to be the guy that didn't really care about putting it where it shouldn't be. You know, he's putting his race car where it shouldn't be a lot of times. But you also got guys like Bell that are trying to block where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And
it goes
so
both ways.
It's a double-edged sword. Every weekend, week out, you got this double-edged sword where it's always Ross's fault. It's Chastain's fault. Blah blah blah. And really, he had a really fast race car the whole day at Richmond. He had a killer race car, and it just come down to cautions. I feel like the cautions are what killed him.
And then
It's like Josh Berry. I mean, if Josh Berry hadn't had to take, or no, Truex. If Truex hadn't had to take
had the scuffs.
Yep. If he hadn't had 6 lap scuffs that already had heat on him, he would have been the guy to beat.
Yeah. So Alex,
my
what were you,
opinion.
Penn? What were you saying a minute ago?
Not really sure, but
Okay.
one thing
question.
I will add.
Let's hear from Shorts. What do you? If you don't have anything, Alex, let's hear from Shorts.
I do have something.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I personally started liking Ross a lot, like back when he rode the wall at Martinsville. I think a lot of people did. And going back to the rivalry thing about Keith and Huffman is, it must have felt great for Chastain to knock out Denny Hamlin in the way that he did riding the wall.
Yeah, but
Like, the joy that he probably felt doing that was.
I gotta applaud.
Shorts, you want to weigh in on this topic?
Yeah, just in terms of how I feel Ross has been treated, but I feel like that comment initially was before like Christopher Bell even saw the replay, and so he was reacting a bit harsh, and I believe he sent an apology afterwards. He did see that, and so it's like I feel it's a bit rough to be able to judge someone's comments when they're not fully informed about that, and so I do enjoy the memes, but I feel it was a reactionary case where he obviously. When Bell saw Chastain go low, he assumed he might end up hitting him, and so he gave space just to be safe from having any contact. But then Chastain actually held his line, and so it was something that Bell probably wasn't accustomed to. But in the end, he was at fault. He was at fault for wrecking Byron in that instance, and so yeah. I guess it's a learning incident that when Chastain's going to be near you, sure, it can be intimidating, but it's not necessarily going to result in contact. So that's kind of my main takeaway. And also just one other thing I want to add, in addition to that fine situation between like Hendrick and the colleague. There's been an update just within the last 5 hours where Byron and Bowman both were also found to have like illegal cars, and they are fined an extra 60 points. And I think their crew chiefs were fined like $75,000. So
Damn.
I feel that might actually
Their cars
undo
were taken.
that might undo this conflict about are Hendrick not going to be associated with? Are they going to be able to escape all of these fines? And I think the answer is there may have just been some new evidence that show that they actually were guilty of something. So
okay.
I'm not sure if that is the case, but that is noticed some updates.
Well,
so.
I talked about this a few weeks ago on the podcast. I was talking about how I know that they're getting these parts and they're modifying these parts. Like if you remember Healy, I talked about this a while back. So it's nothing. They're going to do whatever they can to get an advantage, obviously. So, like I said, it was nothing new to me to hear that they got busted for modifying parts whenever I had already said that I knew that that's something they were doing. Yeah. Anyways, that's you got anything one more thing to add to NASCAR?
Just building off what you said there. Whether they're modifying parts or not, I don't like that NASCAR. It seems like they're maybe making an example out of Colleague instead of Hendrick. And from the outside looking in, it looks like, Hendrick's the popular team of popular drivers, and they're focusing their efforts to a place where fans maybe don't care necessarily, but teams would notice. But in light of this new news, thanks to Mr. Schwartz over there, it seems that maybe NASCAR, as I understood it initially, they weren't too happy that the independent board reneged on some of Hendrick's penalties. So I would expect if Hendrick does anything that's even 1% outside of the box, NASCAR is going to be on that ass.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
Kinder was given a little insight the other day. He took a tour at the place that actually makes the parts, and he said their tolerances were outrageous. Like 100 thousandths was what they had for tolerance. 100 thousandths is a lot when you're talking about parts and stuff. 100 thousandths of a tolerance, man, is I mean that's unreal.
Big deal.
Because that's either way. That's 100 thousandths in minus or plus, so tolerance. And that's what that means.
NASCAR won't give that leeway.
Well, the thing is that NASCAR owns that company that's making those parts. So the thing is, these companies are getting these parts, and they're 100 thousandths tolerance one way or the other. So they may not fit perfectly, which they don't. And that's what Hendrick said was like, well, when we get the parts, they're out. So if these parts are no two are the same, then how can you penalize us for it? Because they weren't the same. They weren't the same whenever they came to us, but also they're not. They definitely been modified. But anyways, regardless of that, let's.
They don't fit the Camaro. Oops, they fit the Toyotas and the Fords perfectly fine.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So. Let's go ahead and move on. We've got this Saturday night we're doing a double dash for cash, Bluegrass double dash for cash, $20 entry fee, running Chicagoland and Talladega. I hope to see you motherfuckers out there because y'all ain't been showing up for the last few money races we've been doing. So hopefully we'll get some people actually from the league to show up. I know I've already got 15 guys or so signed up that are. Some of them are in the league. Some of them are out of the league. So hopefully you guys will actually sign up for it and come run with us Saturday night and have a little bit of fun. A lot of guys don't show up for it. And I'm just sitting here like, what the hell, man? I don't get it. So hopefully we'll get some guys to come out. We'll start practice at 7. First race will go green at 8:10. It'll be broadcast by Peacemaker Gaming. He did a really good job on the last one. I don't know if you caught it or not, but that last Saturday night money race I did a couple weeks ago, he did a phenomenal job. So we're going to be back in the truck series, or in the trucks. Sorry. We're going to be back in the trucks, and we're doing Chicagoland, Talladega. Best average finish wins the overall pot. $50 bonus for each race winner. So make sure you guys are signing up, man. So if we get a full field, that would be great. If we get over 43, the pot is going to go up, because right now the pot's just based on 43. So the more drivers we have, the better. And now that we can start 60 drivers at both tracks, you know what? We might just have a 60 person race. I don't think we'll get that many people, but 43 would be nice. At least 35 to 40 would be nice. Anyways, that takes us over to
Picks.
It's time for picks. Truck Series picks. We are going to the Roval in the Truck Series. So let's hear. Start with Alex Penn. Go ahead, lead us off. Who's your driver next week at the Roval in the Truck Series?
I'm gonna go with Healy, because after his win at Watkins Glen, he started getting on my radar for those road course races, and I think he's got a good shot.
All right, Healy.
I appreciate that.
Who are you going to go with? Who are you going to go with?
Since I can't pick myself, there's really two guys outside of me that I see as big threats on road courses. I'm going to pick one. Someone else is going to pick the other. But being who I am and the team I race with, his name is Bobby Hall Jr., Brown Sugar, whatever his name is in Discord these days. It's Bobby Hall for me.
All right. I'm going to say Peyton Hubbard, man. Peyton Hubbard. That's my pick. So
that's the other one.
Schwartz, who do you got?
Is Worthington run the Truck Series?
Yeah.
Or is that just
yes.
Yeah, I'm going Worthington, since I think he has a good shot.
Radburn.
Dude, I had two of my picks just took straight out from under me. I had doubled up picks ready to go. I don't know who's going to win this.
You've got Colbert, Kaiser, Morton, Wiggin, Lyons, Peacock, Osborne, Duranko, Kostritza.
No.
Just pick one.
I believe Lyons done well at Watkins Glen, didn't he?
Yep. That's a good pick.
I think Lyons had a really good run down there, so I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna roll Lyons, dude.
Good pick. That's a good pick. All right, moving on over to the Xfinity Series. Who we got? Who wants to start this one?
I got Alex Penn.
Who? Say Alex Penn.
I think you did.
I think we lost him. I think we lost him. He did say Alex Penn. He stole my pick, mother 100%. Effer. Okay. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Schutters.
Radburn. He's not here.
All right.
But
I was thinking about him, but I think he's going to take it easy at the Roval, because he doesn't have to win his way in anymore.
True.
Yeah.
All right. So, Penn, who you got?
I am going to go with James, because he's been up there for the road courses this season and Xfinity, and I think he's going to finally be able to stay up at the front.
And Healy and Schwartz, you all the last two?
Yep. I'm going to make this pick. If he doesn't show, I reserve the right to make another pick, but I'm going with Keith Hackney.
Okay. Schwartz?
And I'm going with Lancaster. I think he'll be an underdog, a dark horse, but I think he'll have a really good shot.
All right. I just want to say one thing. I love the way that his camera froze right there, because he's just got that smile on his face. It's the perfect picture. And we lost him for he may not be back. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, Cup Series picks. Schwartz, you're the man. Take us off.
I think this is. I think it's gonna be a head-to-head between me and Huffman. I feel like it's gonna be pretty similar to Watkins Glen. I feel like we were both strong there, so I'm gonna say Huffman will get the stage. I'll get the win. Let's be positive.
Good
My
job.
man, I love it. I have to do it. It's David Farmer.
Alex Penn.
I ran practice with him. He's fast, buddy.
Alex Penn.
I'm gonna go with GT, because he's won 2 of the last 3 races, and he's got the momentum.
I'm going to go with Jonathan Atkins.
Jonathan Atkins. The son of a bitch now.
Jonathan Atkins. I'm going with him. So that takes us through our picks, and that's outro time. Sponsors, Healy, hit us.
outros, now I get to do them a little more fun. Even though, I mean, they were pretty good at the beginning. I didn't pull any punches. But KPG, Kinder Performance Group, John Kinder, he's the shit, man. Go run go-karts with him down at, what is it, Millbridge?
Millbridge, yeah. We should have we should be going down there soon. Everybody, we're going to put a date together where we go get the track and we get everybody together. We're going to run go-karts. We're going to go out there and beat and bang some go-karts and have some fun. So stay tuned.
Yep. I'd love to send one of you guys into the first row. Go live up there with the green shirt guy. Second up, Huffman Designs, Alex Huffman, Huffy. He'll do a design if you can get his attention for long enough to get him to respond to you. Huffy, you better hear that. Scott Fritz, our resident dirt racer extraordinaire / graphic design man. I think he just did the new Discord banner. I think we noticed that last night. That was Fritz's handiwork.
Yep. Really good job.
Looking super hot. And frequently I get to post some of his schemes on Facebook. He does awesome work. If you are in the market for a custom scheme, Huffy or Fritz, they can get you taken care of. Butt Kicker. I said it earlier, adds an entire new dimension to your sim racing experience. I just have one butt kicker. It's even the older one. It's not. I think the newer one's the butt kicker too. But you can feel tire slip. You can feel engine revs. Just everything that feeds through sound in iRacing. You can decide what is important to you. Tire slip is important to me and allows you to catch things a lot earlier than your stupid ears would allow you to. My number one favorite sponsor, Red Rocket Buildings and Barbecue. We are inside buildings. We love barbecue. They won't make you barbecue, but they'll make you something to make some delicious barbecue on. Elevated Outdoors. Those are some people that make things that go high outside or something like that. That looks like me. WJM, as usual, I was able to be a part of it for a short time. Unfortunately, I don't have the schedule to dedicate enough time to it to make it worthwhile for those guys. But a lot of awesome guys I've raced in with the league, particularly Cody Anderson and Roger Pierce. I know Roger's had to step away to focus more on that. But those guys, WJM sponsoring drivers left and right, paying out based on your iRacing official finishes.
Performances, yeah.
Yep, and it's a stepping stone to move up the ladder in this sim racing game that we play and maybe make a few bucks along the way and just get your name out there, and who knows what can come from it.
Contact Bill Mulfeld.
Field. I always have to say his name like I have marbles in my mouth.
Mulefeld. It's not Field. It's Mulefeld. I was corrected on that the other day. There's no I. It's a ELD, FELD. So Mulefeld. But yes. Go ahead.
That's it. That's it. That's the damn sponsors. That's Alex Penn. That's Jason Collins. That's Radburn Schutters. That's John Schwartz, and since there's two Alexes, once again, you can call me the Scarecrow because I'm outstanding in my field. I'll catch you next week.
We out.